The stars above Valora burned quiet that night, calm and distant as if they did not see what was about to happen. The Valoran people had lived under those stars for thousands of years. Their cities shimmered with crystal towers that reflected the twin moons, and their oceans glowed with soft blue light. They were peaceful, proud, and loyal to Earth. When humanity first reached out to them generations ago, they opened their gates with open hearts. Together, humans and Valorans had built trade routes, science exchanges, and defense pacts that promised protection across the galaxy. But promises meant little when the Galactic Council decided otherwise. It began with silence on the comms. The Council ships stopped responding. Trade convoys were delayed without reason. Then a shadow fell over Valora. Hundreds of massive warships appeared in orbit, each bearing the Council's crest in a golden spiral of authority. The Valoran sent a message of peace. They thought it was a misunderstanding. But the first beam fell before the message even reached orbit. The sky turned white. The oceans boiled. Cities became dust. Children ran through streets that no longer had names. The energy beam sliced across the planet like the hand of an angry god. The Valorans, who had never known war in their lifetimes, did not even know how to hide. The ground quaked under the Council's bombardment. Whole continents cracked open. In a single night, Valora's beauty vanished. Where once stood gardens and art-filled plazas, now stood fields of glass. The Council called it purification. They said Valora had grown too close to the Terrans, too sympathetic to humanity's growing independence. The Council feared humans and their creativity, their defiance, their refusal to bow. Destroying Valora was a warning, a message written in fire across the galaxy. But even in that destruction, a few Valorans survived. Among them was Commander Rylan, a military advisor once trained by Earth's fleet. He stood on the shattered cliffs overlooking what had once been his capital city. The wind howled through the ruins, carrying ash and the faint scent of burnt metal. His eyes reflected the dying glow of his world. In the distance, Council ships circled the planet like vultures. He pressed his communicator, static breaking through the noise. "This is Rylan of Valora. If any Terran ships can hear me, they have destroyed us. The Council has declared war." His voice trembled, but not with fear, with fury. "Tell Earth. Do not trust their words. They come for you next." The message echoed through the void, weak but alive. Light years away, in the deep corridors of Earth's Orbital Defense Command, a small beacon flickered on a dark monitor. A young officer, barely 20, noticed it first. "Commander, I think we have a distress call." "Source unknown." The senior officer leaned in. The message repeated. Broken, filled with static, but clear enough to chill every person in that room. "They have destroyed us. The Council comes for you next." The room fell silent. No one moved for several seconds. Then Admiral Cale Rowan, known as the Iron Hawk of Earth's Navy, turned toward the stars outside the command window. His jaw tightened. "Trace it. Now." Within minutes, the coordinates came in. Valora. Allied world. Non-combat zone. Or at least it had been. Until now, Cale's hand tightened around the railing. He remembered Valora, the warm beaches, the laughter of their people, their trust in humanity. He had been there once, a guest during a diplomatic exchange. They had called humans brothers of the stars, and now they were gone. "Get me a full sensor feed," Kyle ordered. The holographic display filled the air. Images from remote satellites, half burned, half blind. The planet below was dead. No life signs, just a graveyard glowing faintly red. "Who authorized this?" one of the officers whispered. "The Council doesn't do this without a vote." Cale's eyes darkened. "They do when they fear us." In the following hours, reports flooded in. The Galactic Council had labeled Valora as compromised. Their public announcement called it a containment operation, lies dressed as order. They claimed Valora was experimenting with forbidden Terran weaponry. The galaxy watched in silence. No one dared to question the Council's decree. But humanity did not stay silent. Across the colonies, people watched the images of Valora's destruction. Some wept, others clenched their fists. On Earth, memorial lights filled the night sky, one for every lost Valoran life. The alliance had been more than politics. It had been friendship. And now it was broken in fire. In the military halls, whispers began to grow. Officers spoke behind closed doors. Pilots prepared their ships, checking engines that had not burned in years. And deep inside the command center, Admiral Cale stood before a digital map of the galaxy. The Council's fleet patterns glowed in red. Earth's warships glowed in blue. Between them stretched silence, a silence that would not last. He stared at the red lights circling Valora and said quietly, "You wanted to send a message. Now you will hear ours." Outside the orbital station, Earth's fleet began to wake. Engines ignited, casting silver trails across the darkness. Ships that had been silent for decades now rumbled with purpose. Pilots strapped in, hearts pounding. Far beyond, among the drifting ruins of Valora, Commander Rylan looked to the stars once more. His signal beacon still blinked faintly, though he did not know if anyone had heard him. But then through the smoke and dust he saw a streak of light descending from orbit, not from the Council, but from the stars he once called allies. It was a Terran dropship. Hope, fragile and trembling, returned to his eyes for the first time since the massacre began. Humanity had heard, and humanity was coming. He whispered to himself, voice weak but steady, "Let them see what happens when Earth remembers its friends." The message from Valora spread like wildfire across the Terran systems. Every broadcast channel, every military frequency, every colony outpost replayed the faint, broken words of Commander Ryland's distress call. It was not just a message of warning us, it was a cry of betrayal. Humanity had stood beside the Galactic Council for centuries, believing in peace and unity. But now their trust had been shattered in one merciless strike. In the cold silence of space aboard Earth's flagship Erebus, Admiral Cale Rowan stood before his crew. The light from the nearby planet bathed the bridge in pale blue hues. The faces around him were tense, waiting. Every officer, every pilot, every engineer had already heard the Valoran transmission. Cale's gaze drifted toward the large viewport where the distant stars shimmered like cold witnesses. "Transmit to all Terran fleets," he said. His voice was calm, but there was a storm beneath every word. "The Galactic Council has committed genocide against our allies. They called it containment, I call it murder." The bridge crew froze. Some lowered their heads. Others clenched their fists. Cale continued, "The Valorans believed in us. They stood beside us when the Council tried to cut off our expansion. They offered friendship when others turned their backs. And now they lie beneath the ashes of their own world." He turned to his communications officer. "Send the order. Operation Retribution is active. No more debates, no more waiting for permission. We move now." Within minutes, the command spread through every Terran channel, from the orbital docks above Mars to the deep space stations near Titan. Warships came alive. Hangars opened, revealing fleets of destroyers, carriers, and gunships that had been silent for years. The hum of engines filled the void, a sound that had not echoed since the old wars of Earth. On Luna Base, Commander Aiden Cross prepared his squadron. His ship, the Vanguard, was sleek and dark, built for speed and power. He looked at the faces of his crew, men and women who had grown up hearing stories about the Council's peace, not its cruelty. One of his pilots, a young woman named Vega, adjusted her helmet and whispered, "We are really going to war with the Council?" Aiden nodded slowly. "They already went to war with us. They just didn't expect us to fight back." In the void beyond, fleets began to form. Hundreds of Terran vessels aligned under the same signal, the crest of Earth glowing in red and silver. The transmission from the flagship Erebus echoed through their comms. "For Valora, for those we have lost. Humanity does not forget." Meanwhile, far from Earth's systems, the Galactic Council gathered in their crystalline chambers on the planet Cerion. The high members sat around a circular table, their faces calm but uneasy. Holograms of Valora's destruction played silently in the air above them. "Earth will protest," said one counselor with silver eyes, "but they will not act. They know their fleets are smaller. They know they cannot stand against the Council's unity." Another older counselor smiled faintly. "They are still primitive in spirit. They fear the loss of peace more than they love justice." But their confidence began to crumble when the reports came in. A scout vessel from the outer sectors had gone missing. Then another. Then a patrol near the Valoran border was found drifting, its hull torn open, crew gone. Surveillance drones caught glimpses of something impossible. Terran ships moving in perfect formation, cloaked by electromagnetic interference. "What are they doing?" one counselor demanded. "Preparing," answered the intelligence officer. "For something large." The Council dismissed it as panic. But the next day the stars themselves began to change. The Terran armada arrived in the Valoran system. Commander Rylan, still alive among the ruins, saw the sky fill with shapes, Earth's ships, black as iron and bright as vengeance. They hovered above the ashes of his planet like sentinels of retribution. The lead ship's engines burned with crimson light, and a single message was broadcast across all Council frequencies. For Valora, for every innocent life you erased, Earth remembers. The Council's occupying fleet stationed in orbit scrambled. Hundreds of drones activated defensive grids, plasma cannons charged, and cruisers moved into position. But Earth's fleet did not flinch. Admiral Kale's voice echoed through the intercom. Fire. The first salvo came from the Erebus. A barrage of railgun rounds glowing with compressed plasma ripped through the void. The Council's lead cruiser exploded instantly, fragments scattering like dying stars. Within moments the battle began, fierce, blinding, and unstoppable. Terran ships moved like predators, silent and precise. Missiles streaked through the darkness, guided by human instincts honed through centuries of survival. Fighters danced between laser beams, weaving death through chaos. The Council's disciplined formations broke apart under the pressure. Their technology was advanced, but their hearts were weak. In the midst of the fight, Commander Rylan watched from the surface. He saw beams of light cutting through the night sky, heard the distant echoes of explosions rumbling through the ground. For a moment, he felt something he thought had died with his people: hope. Above him, Earth's warships carved vengeance into the heavens. One by one, the Council's vessels fell, consumed by the fire they had once used to destroy Valora. The orbital command relay shattered, silencing the Council's orders. The Erebus broadcast one final message before withdrawing. This is not over. Earth will not rest until justice is done. The Council will answer for every Valoran life. As the surviving Council ships limped away into the dark, the Terran fleet regrouped. Valora was a ruin, but its ashes now had witnesses and protectors. Humanity had spoken, and the galaxy had heard. In the quiet aftermath, Admiral Kale stood at the viewport of his ship. His reflection stared back at him, cold, determined. They thought fear would keep us silent, he whispered. But they forgot who taught fear to the stars. Far below, Rylan looked up at the glowing trails of Terran ships leaving orbit. His voice cracked as he whispered, "Thank you, brothers of Earth. The Valorans are gone, but their vengeance lives." The night above, Valora shimmered with the last fading fires of war, and the first dawn of something new. Humanity had awakened, and this time the galaxy would tremble. The Galactic Council had not known fear for centuries. It ruled with laws written in the blood of conquered species, its fleets unmatched, its power absolute. But now within the marble towers of Sarian Prime, the sound of alarms echoed, an ancient sound the Council had almost forgotten. Holoscreens lit the chamber as counselors gathered, their expressions pale and tense. Reports streamed in: 2 fleets destroyed near Valora, communication blackout across 7 sectors, Terran forces advancing. High Chancellor Vorn, a creature with glassy skin and eyes like dark water, slammed his hand against the table. How can this be? Humanity's fleets were crippled after the last treaty. They cannot possess this strength. An aide, trembling, replied, "Their technology has evolved, Chancellor. Faster than light drives, beyond our predictions, adaptive weapon systems, and something else. They fight as if they have nothing left to lose." Silence followed. The Council had always viewed humans as reckless, dangerous, yes, but controllable. Now that perception was collapsing. Humanity was not negotiating, it was hunting. From the shadowed edge of the chamber, Counselor Zira, one of the few who had opposed Valora's destruction, spoke softly. "You made a martyr of Valora, and in doing so you gave humanity purpose." Vorn glared at her. "You dare to blame us for their rebellion?" "I do not call it rebellion," Zira said. "I call it reckoning." Far from the Council's golden cities, Earth's armada continued its advance. Every jump through hyperspace was followed by silence, then thunder. Terran ships struck military outposts, severed supply lines, and dismantled communication relays. The Council's colonies that once believed themselves untouchable now watched in horror as their skies burned red. On board the flagship Erebus, Admiral Kale Rowan reviewed the map of the sector. The blue lights marking Earth's fleet had begun to stretch across the galaxy, surrounding Council strongholds like a tightening noose. "Status on the Vanguard Squadron?" he asked. Commander Aiden Cross's voice came through the intercom, rough but steady. "Vanguard is in position near Sirian's outer defense grid. We found something you'll want to see." "Explain." Aiden hesitated for a moment before sending the transmission. The holographic projection filled the command deck. It showed rows of massive orbital stations, each glowing faintly with green energy. Within them floated thousands of capsules, each containing a Valoran body. Some alive, some preserved, Kale's hand clenched into a fist. "They are harvesting survivors." "They are experimenting," Aiden said quietly, "using Valoran DNA to create a new bioweapon. The Council calls it Project Ascension." The bridge fell silent. For a long moment, Kale stared at the image. Then his voice dropped to a cold whisper. "Transmit to all fleets. Change of priority. Destroy Ascension." Hours later, the Terran fleet descended upon the research rings like a storm. Missiles screamed through the void. Railgun fire ripped through reinforced plating. The Council's scientists barely had time to react before fire consumed their creations. Commander Vega's fighter streaked past an explosion, her voice sharp over the comms. "That's another ring down. We have movement. Council reinforcements incoming." Kale's tone remained steady. "Hold formation. We finish what they started." The enemy fleet emerged from hyperspace. Dozens of cruisers bristling with plasma cannons. But this time Earth was ready. The Erebus unleashed a gravitational pulse, bending light around its hull. The enemy's targeting systems faltered. Terran warships weaved through their confusion, striking with mechanical precision. Within minutes, the void became chaos. Fire and debris drifted like blood in water. In the middle of it all, Aiden's Vanguard docked with one of the shattered rings. He led a small strike team inside. The corridors were filled with smoke and flickering lights. Behind shattered glass, Valoran survivors stared at them, weak but alive. "Commander," Vega whispered. "They are still breathing." Aiden nodded. "Get them out." "Every single one." They freed hundreds, the last remnants of Valora's people. Among them was a child, barely old enough to speak, clutching a pendant shaped like a twin moon. Aiden knelt and offered his hand. "You are safe now. We will take you home." The child looked up, her eyes glowing faintly, a strange fusion of Valoran blue and human amber. "Home is gone," she said quietly. "But you came." Back aboard the Erebus, Kale stood by the viewing window as the last of the Council stations burned. "They wanted to play gods," he murmured. "Now they see what it feels like to face the wrath of men." Across the galaxy, news of the Valoran rescue spread faster than any Council broadcast could censor. Entire colonies whispered the same name: Earth. For the first time in history, fear shifted, from the oppressed to the oppressors. On Sirion Prime, Chancellor Vorn received the reports with trembling hands. "How many ships lost?" 42 confirmed. 12 more missing. He stared at the glowing war map. "And the humans?" The aide swallowed hard. "None." The Chancellor's voice cracked. "None?" Zaira stepped forward again, her voice quiet but firm. "You cannot erase a species that was born from fire. You burned their allies and they remembered what it means to survive." Vorn turned toward her, eyes filled with rage and fear. "Then tell me, Counselor, what do we do now?" Zaira looked at the hologram of Valora's broken world and said, "Pray that Earth stops." But Earth would not stop. In the darkness beyond the Council's borders, Admiral Kale watched as the Terran fleet regrouped. The stars shimmered across the hulls of his ships, silent, endless, and waiting. He whispered to himself, "We warned them once. Now they will remember our name forever." And as the fleet turned toward Sirion Prime, the galaxy held its breath. Humanity was no longer defending. Humanity was coming. The Council's capital world, Sirion Prime, had never known the sound of war. Its skies were clear, its oceans golden, and its cities shone with towers that touched the clouds. Every structure was built to reflect power and permanence, a world that believed it would never fall. But on that day, the light of Sirion changed. The stars dimmed and the air itself trembled. From orbit, a storm of steel and flame emerged. Humanity had arrived. The Terran Armada appeared without warning, bursting through subspace in a single synchronized jump. Hundreds of warships filled the void, blotting out the stars. The Erebus led them, its hull glowing with the red pulse of charged cannons. Behind it came the Vanguard, Nemesis, Arcadia, and dozens more, ships forged for peace, now reborn for vengeance. On the Council's observation spire, Chancellor Vorn stood before a trembling crowd of delegates. His voice shook as he addressed them. Do not panic. Their numbers are great, but our defenses are impenetrable. The humans cannot breach Sirion's shield. We have the technology of 10,000 years. But even as he spoke, the first strike began. The Terran ships moved with perfect coordination. Railguns fired from impossible ranges, piercing the orbital defense grid before the Council could react. Energy shields flared, flickered, and fell. The sky filled with light as explosions rippled through the upper atmosphere. Commander Aiden Cross's voice cut through the comms. Targets locked. Delivering justice. Missiles streaked through the clouds, finding their marks with precision that felt almost merciful. They struck only the military zones, never the civilian domes. Kale had made it clear. Humanity would show wrath, but not cruelty. They would show strength, but never savagery. On the ground, the people of Sirion looked upward. For the first time, they saw fire falling from heaven, not from their rulers, but upon them. In the council chambers, panic broke through order. Holograms blinked, communications failed, and officers shouted over one another. The once proud leaders of the galaxy now looked like frightened children. Counselor Zira stood apart, her face pale but calm. You see now, she said quietly. They warned us. They begged for reason, and we answered with genocide. Now reason is gone. Vorn turned to her, desperate. You sided with them, did you not? Tell them to stop. Zira shook her head slowly. You cannot command those who have already buried their dead. Outside, the Erebus descended closer to orbit. Its engines thundered like an approaching storm. Admiral Kale stood on the command deck, silent, his gaze fixed on the planet below. The face of Valora flashed in his mind. The burning cities, the broken voices, the promise he had made. Transmit a message, he ordered. A signal pulsed across every council frequency. Across every screen, every radio, and every mind connected to Sirion's network, a single human face appeared. Kyle's. His voice was calm, slow, and without hatred. This is Admiral Kale Rowan of Earth. The Galactic Council has committed crimes that no law can forgive. You slaughtered those who trusted you. You silenced voices that only wanted peace. We are here not to conquer, but to judge. Stand down or we will end what you began. The entire planet heard it. Soldiers froze. Civilians whispered the name Earth with both awe and terror. Vorn tried to respond, shouting into the console, You cannot threaten the Council. We are order itself. Kale's reply came within seconds. Order without mercy is tyranny, and tyranny dies today. Then the skies split open. The Terran fleet unleashed the full force of its weapons. Orbital railguns roared. Plasma torpedoes fell like meteor storms, and lightning from artificial storms tore through the Council's defense spires. Each impact shook the world below. The great glass cities cracked. Towers collapsed into the sea. Sirion Prime bled light. In the chaos, Commander Rylan, now recovered and serving aboard the Vanguard, led a ground team toward the Council Hall. He wore the mark of Valora on his armor, twin moons crossed with silver. Kale, I'm entering the lower levels, Rylan said through his comm. There's something down here. A control core for their planetary shield. They're trying to restart it. Understood, Kale replied. You have 5 minutes. Do what you must. Rylan's squad moved through burning corridors. Council guards fired wildly, but the humans advanced without hesitation. Inside the control chamber, he found it. A massive crystalline core humming with unstable energy. And standing before it, Chancellor Vorn, stop this madness, Vorn shouted, his voice shaking. You'll destroy everything. Do you think your victory will bring them back? Rylan raised his weapon but did not fire. His voice was quiet, filled with the calm of a man who had already seen death. No, but it will make sure their killers never forget. He pressed the detonator. The explosion consumed the core. The shield collapsed in a flash of white, spreading shockwaves across the capital. From orbit, the Erebus watched as the Council's last defense fell. Admiral Kale gave his final order. Stand down. Mission complete. The Terran fleet stopped firing. Slowly, the guns fell silent. Smoke and light faded. Sirion Prime was broken but not annihilated. Its city still stood, scarred, trembling, alive. Kyle looked upon the wounded world and felt no triumph, only sorrow. "This is not victory," he said quietly to his crew. "This is justice paid in blood." Across the galaxy, the news spread faster than any hyperdrive could travel. The Council had fallen. Humanity had done the impossible. In the ruins of the Council chamber, Syra stood among the shattered marble and flickering holograms. Around her lay the broken symbols of a fallen empire. She raised her head to the sky, watching the Terran fleet withdraw. "For the first time," she whispered, "the stars belong to no one's chains." And as the Erebus turned toward the distant light of Earth, Cale Rowan closed his eyes. Valora was gone. The Council was broken, but something far greater had begun. A new age of reckoning across the stars, the age where Earth no longer asked for peace. It decided what peace would mean.